Minho Park stood alone in the center of the vast chamber. Above him, the ceiling stretched so high he could barely see it. Around him, seated on platforms that floated in the air, were the representatives of 40 different alien species. Their eyes, or whatever they used to see, were all focused on him. He was the last human ambassador to the Galactic Coalition. In a few minutes, he knew he would no longer have that title. The chamber was silent except for the soft hum of the translation devices. Minho's uniform felt heavy on his shoulders. He had worn it with pride for 20 years. Now it felt like a burial shroud. The speaker of the coalition rose from her platform. She was Velkari, an insect-like creature with 4 arms and compound eyes that glittered like black diamonds. Her mandibles clicked as she spoke, and the translator turned her words into human language. "Captain Minho Park of Earth," she said. Her voice echoed through the chamber. "The Galactic Coalition has reached its decision." Minho said nothing. He kept his face calm, though his heart was pounding. Behind him, through the massive windows, he could see Earth's fleet waiting in orbit. Hundreds of ships, the pride of humanity's expansion into the stars. He wondered if they knew what was coming. "Humanity is hereby expelled from the Galactic Coalition," the speaker continued. "All trade agreements are canceled. All technology licenses are revoked. All human colonies outside the Sol system must be evacuated within 30 standard days." A murmur ran through the assembled aliens. Some sounded satisfied. Others sounded almost sad. Minho focused on breathing, in and out. "Stay calm." Furthermore, the speaker said, and now her voice grew harder, "a quantum barrier will be erected around the Sol system. Humanity will be contained. You will not be allowed to leave. You will not threaten the peace of the galaxy again." Now Minho spoke. His voice was steady, though anger burned in his chest. "What is our crime?" The speaker's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Your species is too violent, too unpredictable. In the 3 decades since first contact, humans have been involved in 17 armed conflicts. You solve problems with weapons. You negotiate with threats. We defended ourselves," Minho interrupted. "Every single time." An alien from the Astron Collective spoke up. It looked like a sculpture made of crystal, its voice like wind chimes. "You defended yourselves with excessive force. You destroyed entire stations over simple disputes. You refused to follow coalition protocols for conflict resolution. Your protocols take years," Minho said. "By the time you finish debating, people are dead." "Better slow justice than fast violence," another alien said. This one was Torvin, amphibious and huge, with skin that glistened with moisture. Minho looked around at them all. "So this is your justice? Imprisoning an entire species because you're afraid of us?" "We do not fear you," the Velkari speaker said. But Minho could hear the lie in her voice. They did fear humanity. They feared what humans might become if left unchecked. "You have 30 days, the speaker repeated. "Evacuate your colonies. Return to Earth. The barrier will be activated whether you are ready or not." Minho wanted to argue. He wanted to fight. But he was one man in a room full of beings who had already made their choice. So instead he straightened his uniform and gave them a formal bow. "The human race will remember this day," he said quietly. "We will remember who our friends were." He paused. "And who our enemies are." He turned and walked toward the exit. Behind him, the aliens began to talk among themselves, their voices mixing into an incomprehensible noise. Minho didn't look back. Outside the chamber, his aide was waiting. Yuna Kim was a young scientist, barely 30 years old, with quick eyes and a sharp mind. She fell into step beside him. "How bad?" she asked. "As bad as we expected," Minho said. "We have 30 days to get everyone home." Yuna's face went pale. "That's not enough time. We have colonies on 50 worlds. Millions of people." "I know," Minho said. "Contact Admiral Deho. Tell him to start the evacuation immediately. Every ship we have, every transport, every shuttle. We leave nothing behind that they can use against us." They walked through the corridors of the Coalition station. Other aliens moved past them, some staring, others deliberately looking away. Minho felt their judgment like a weight pressing down on him. A young officer met them at the docking bay. Sora Lee was fresh from the academy, assigned to document the proceedings. Her hands shook slightly as she held her recording device. "Sir," she said, "what do we tell the people back home?" Minho stopped and looked at her. Really looked at her. She was so young. She had grown up believing humanity had a place among the stars, that they were part of something larger. Now that dream was being ripped away. Tell them the truth, he said. Tell them we've been cast out. Tell them the galaxy doesn't want us. He paused. And tell them we will survive this. The journey back to the fleet took an hour. Minho spent it staring out the viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, home. Soon it would be a prison. When they docked with the flagship, Admiral Daeho Choi was waiting. He was an old man, his hair white, his face lined with decades of command. But his eyes were still sharp, so? He asked. We're exiled, Minho said. 30 days. Daeho nodded slowly. I've already given the orders. Every human ship is heading home. It will be tight, but we'll make it. And then what? Yuna asked. We're trapped in our own system. We can't trade, we can't explore, we survive, Daeho said firmly. That's what humans do. We survive. Over the next 30 days, humanity performed the largest evacuation in its history. Ships raced between the stars, picking up colonists, scientists, workers, families. Some cried as they left their homes. Others were angry. All of them were afraid. Minho watched it all from the bridge of the last ship to leave Coalition space. Behind them, human colonies stood empty. Farms that had fed thousands were abandoned. Research stations that had pushed the boundaries of science went dark. All of it left behind. As they approached the Sol system, Minho could see it forming in the distance. The quantum barrier? It looked like a wall of shimmering light stretching across space, cutting Earth off from the rest of the universe. The ship passed through. For a moment, everything went white. Then they were on the other side, and Earth hung in the viewport, blue and beautiful and alone. Sir, the helmsman said, the barrier is sealing behind us. Minho stood and walked to the communications console. Open a channel, he said. All frequencies. I want everyone to hear this. Earth, the fleet, and the coalition. When the channel was open, he spoke. His voice was transmitted across space, reaching human and alien ears alike. This is Captain Minho Park, the last human to speak to the Galactic Coalition as an equal. He paused. You wanted us gone. You called us violent, unpredictable, dangerous. You were afraid of what we might become. Another pause. You were right to be afraid. But your timing was poor. You should have made peace with us when you had the chance. He looked at the barrier, at that wall of light keeping them caged. We will remember this exile. We will remember every species that voted to cast us out. And if we ever find a way through this barrier. He smiled, cold and hard. Pray we never find a way back. He cut the transmission. Around him, the bridge crew was silent. Outside, Earth waited. 4 billion humans all trapped together, all wondering what came next. Minho looked at Admiral Daeho. How long until the barrier is fully stable? 3 hours, Daeho said. Then we have 3 hours to study it, Minho said. Get every scientist we have analyzing its structure. I want to know how it works, sir, Yuna said carefully. Even if we figure out how it works, breaking through could take decades, maybe centuries. Then we have centuries, Minho said. Humanity has time. We have nothing but time now. He looked out at the stars one last time before the barrier fully sealed. They looked cold and distant. Once humans had dreamed of living among them. Now they were locked away, cut off, exiled. But Minho knew something the aliens didn't understand. Humanity had always been at its most dangerous when backed into a corner. They had just locked the most adaptable, most stubborn, most vengeful species in the galaxy into a cage. The aliens thought they had contained a threat. They had only delayed it. And in the long silence of exile, in the darkness behind that barrier, humanity would change. They would grow stronger. They would become something new, something fiercer. 200 years passed behind the barrier. To the galaxy beyond, the Sol system became a mystery. Ships that approached the quantum wall found nothing but silence. Probes sent through never returned. The aliens told themselves that humanity had probably died out, unable to survive in isolation. Some felt guilty about this. Most felt relieved. They were wrong on both counts. Inside the barrier, humanity had not died. They had transformed. Hyunwoo Jin stood in his laboratory on Mars, looking at the test results on his screen. His hands were shaking, not from fear but from excitement. After 30 years of research, he had finally done it. It works, he whispered. His assistant came over to look. She was young, born 50 years after the exile, and had never seen an alien in her life. To her generation, the coalition was just a story, a warning, a reason for everything they did. You're sure? She asked. Hyunwoo nodded. He pulled up the genetic scans. The modifications are stable. Increased resistance to radiation, extended cellular lifespan, enhanced neural pathways for faster thinking. All of it works together. He looked at his assistant. We can make humanity stronger. The adaptation protocol, as it came to be called, was not forced on anyone. But when people saw what it could do, saw how it could extend life, improve health, make humans more resilient, millions volunteered. Then billions. Within 50 years, nearly every human alive had been enhanced. They lived longer, thought faster, endured more. The children born after the enhancements were even more capable than their parents. Humanity was evolving, and they were doing it on purpose. But physical improvements were only part of the change. Jiwon Bayek floated in zero gravity, watching through the viewport as another massive structure took shape. The Forge World, they called it, an entire asteroid, hollowed out and converted into a shipyard capable of building 100 warships at once. How many do we have now? Asked the engineer next to her. Jiwon checked her display. 16 Forge Worlds operational, another 20 under construction. She smiled. Every asteroid in the belt will become a factory. Every moon a shipyard. Every human colony a military base. The council approved the budget. The council knows we need this, Jiwon said. We're not exploring anymore. If we're preparing for what exactly varied depending on who you asked. Some said they were preparing to break through the barrier. Others said they were preparing for the day when the aliens broke through to attack them. A few optimists thought they were preparing to rejoin the galaxy peacefully, but most people knew the truth. They were preparing for war. The man who shaped this preparation was not a general or an admiral. He was a philosopher. Tae-young Nam had been a university professor before the exile. He had taught ethics and political theory. But 200 years of isolation had changed his thinking. He had written a book called The Eclipse Doctrine that became required reading for every officer in Earth's military. The doctrine was simple. Humanity would never be vulnerable again. They would never beg for acceptance. They would never negotiate from weakness. If they returned to the galaxy, it would be with overwhelming force. And they would show mercy only to those who earned it. Peace through strength, Tae-young wrote. Security through fear. Survival through unity. Critics called it harsh. Tae-young called it realistic. The aliens exiled us because they feared we were too violent, he told his students. They created exactly what they were afraid of. When we return, we must be strong enough that no one will ever dare cast us out again. His words spread through humanity like fire. A generation grew up believing them. But strength required more than weapons and warriors. It required technology. Specifically, it required the ability to break through the barrier. So-min Yoon had always wanted to fly faster than light. As a child, she had read about the old FTL drives that humans had used before the exile. Technology licensed from the Coalition. Those drives were gone now, destroyed or locked behind patents humanity could no longer access. So So-min decided to build something new. She became a physicist, then an engineer, then the captain of an experimental test ship. Her crew called her crazy. Her superiors called her ambitious. She called herself determined. The test ship was called Breakthrough. The name was not subtle. Captain, her navigator said, we're approaching the barrier. So-min looked at the shimmering wall of energy that had trapped humanity for generations. Somewhere beyond it were the stars. Somewhere beyond it was the galaxy that had rejected them. Engage the quantum drive, she ordered. The ship began to shake. Red lights flashed across the bridge. The drive was experimental, built from reverse-engineered barrier technology, and it consumed enormous amounts of power. It also had a nasty habit of killing people. Drive at 50%, the engineer reported. 70%. 90, the ship lurched. Alarm screamed. So-min held onto her chair as reality seemed to bend around them. Hull integrity at 40%. Life support failing on decks 3 and 4. Medical emergency and engineering. But they were moving. The barrier, which had been an impassable wall for 2 centuries, began to thin around them. The quantum drive was tearing a hole in space itself. Captain, we're losing too many people. I know, So-min said quietly. Her crew was dying. Half of them would not survive this test. But the others would make it through, and that meant humanity could escape. The ship burst through the barrier like a bullet through paper. For a moment, they were in open space, surrounded by stars they had not seen in 200 years. Then the drive failed. Explosions ripped through the engineering section. The ship began to tumble. "Get us back," Salmon ordered. "Now." They barely made it. The ship limped back through the hole in the barrier, which sealed behind them. Of the 100 crew members who had started the mission, only 53 returned. But they had done it. They had proven it was possible. Salmon stood in front of the Earth Council 3 weeks later. Her arm was in a sling, and she had burns on half her face from the explosions. But she stood straight and proud. "We can break through," she told them. "The drive works. It just needs refinement. At what cost?" one counselor asked. "You lost half your crew. The second version will be safer," Salmon said. "The third even better. In 10 years we can have drives that are stable. In 20 we can mass produce them." The council members looked at each other. They were thinking about the same thing. The barrier had always been a problem, but it had also been an excuse. As long as they were trapped, they could tell themselves they were victims. They could justify everything they did as necessary for survival. But if they could leave, "This changes everything," the council leader said. "Yes," Salmon agreed. "It does." The decision was made that day. Humanity would perfect the quantum drive. They would build ships capable of breaking through the barrier. And they would not announce their breakthrough to the galaxy. When they returned, it would be in silence. The years passed. The quantum drive was perfected. Ships were built in secret, thousands of them, all equipped with stealth technology beyond anything the Coalition had possessed. The new generation of humans, enhanced by the adaptation protocol, trained for missions they barely understood. They were faster, stronger, smarter than their ancestors. They had been raised on stories of the exile, taught to remember the names of every species that had voted to cast humanity out. They were ready. In the 203rd year after the exile, a small ship slipped through the barrier. It did not announce itself. It did not broadcast any signals. It simply vanished into the darkness between stars. 3 days later, it reached the nearest inhabited system. The crew spent a week observing, recording, scanning. Then they returned to the Sol system with their data. The reports confirmed what many had suspected. The galaxy had not changed much. The Coalition still ruled, still believed in slow justice and careful diplomacy. They had grown comfortable, lazy even. They thought humanity was gone. Admiral Jisoo Han read the reports with cold satisfaction. She was young by the standards of enhanced humans, only 70 years old, but she had risen quickly through the ranks. She was brilliant, ruthless, and patient. "They're not ready for us," she told her officers. "They think we're extinct, or if we exist, we're still trapped. They have no idea what's coming. When do we begin the expansion?" one officer asked. Jisoo smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Immediately, but quietly. We claim systems without fanfare. We build bases without announcing them. We grow strong in the shadows." She looked at the star map. "When the galaxy finally realizes we're back, it will be too late for them to stop us." The plan was executed with precision. Human ships moved through the barrier in small groups spreading out across space. They found systems rich in resources but far from Coalition patrols. They established mining operations, research stations, hidden military bases. Each system, they claimed, made them stronger. Each day they remained undetected gave them more advantage. Back on Earth, children played games about the return. Adults worked in factories building weapons. Scientists developed technologies the galaxy had never seen. Humanity had spent 200 years preparing for a single purpose. They were coming back, not as explorers seeking acceptance, not as diplomats requesting admission. They were coming back as conquerors. And the galaxy would learn, too late, that exile had not weakened humanity. It had refined them. The Valkyrie patrol ship Harmonious Purpose drifted through the outer rim, its sensors sweeping the darkness. The captain was bored. This sector had been empty for decades, devoid of anything interesting. Just rocks and ice and the cold silence of space. "Contact," the sensor officer said suddenly. "Unknown structure detected on the third moon of the system." The captain's mandibles clicked with interest. "Unknown? Show me." The image appeared on the screen. A structure, clearly artificial, built into the side of a crater. It was large, obviously a mining operation of some kind. But there were no identification markers, no transponder signals, no response to hails. "Pirates?" the captain wondered. Unknown design, the sensor officer said. Not in our database. The captain made a decision. Take us closer. Prepare a boarding team. Let's see who's operating in Coalition space without permission. The patrol ship moved toward the moon. The crew prepared their weapons, expecting smugglers or outlaws. What they found was something else entirely. As they approached, the mining structure suddenly came alive. Turrets emerged from hidden ports. Energy shields flickered on. And from the moon's surface, 3 ships rose to meet them. Captain, those ships, they're moving too fast. Our database shows no matches. The transmission cut off. The patrol ship exploded in a ball of fire. The debris scattered across the moon's orbit. The 3 human ships circled the wreckage once, scanning for survivors. There were none. Then the ships descended back to the mining station and disappeared beneath the surface. Within an hour, the entire operation had been dismantled and moved. By the time Coalition forces arrived to investigate the distress signal, there was nothing left but empty craters. Admiral Jisoo Han received the report on her flagship. Hidden in a debris field 3 systems away, she read it without emotion. They found Outpost 17, her second-in-command said, but the crew followed protocol. No survivors, no evidence left behind. Good, Jisoo said. How many outposts are we operating now? 43. Another 16 under construction. We control resources in 38 systems. Jisoo nodded. 38 systems claimed without the Coalition even knowing. It was a good start. But it was time to accelerate. Send orders to all fleet commanders, she said. Begin Phase 2. I want 50 more systems secured within 6 months. That's aggressive, Admiral. The chance of detection increases. The chance of detection is already 100%, Jisoo said calmly. That patrol ship sent a distress call before it died. The Coalition knows something is out here now. They'll start searching, so we need to be strong enough that when they find us, it doesn't matter. She was right. Within weeks, Coalition Command was reviewing the incident. The patrol ship had been destroyed by unknown weapons using unknown technology. Pirates did not have that level of capability. Neither did any rebel group. Someone new was operating in Coalition space. While the Coalition debated what to do, Commander Dong-Hyun-Oh was already deep in their networks. He sat in a small ship, docked at a Coalition trading station, his fingers moving across holographic screens. To anyone watching, he appeared to be a Torvan merchant checking cargo manifests. The disguise was perfect. Human technology had advanced far beyond Coalition security measures. Dong-Hyun had been altered surgically, genetically, and cybernetically to pass as an alien. He had spent 3 years moving through Coalition space, stealing data, planting viruses, mapping networks. I'm in, he whispered to his comm device, accessing military databases now. On the other end of the line, Dr. Yoon Ji-song waited in a research facility hidden on a barren planet. She was humanity's leading xenobiologist, and her work was darker than most humans knew about. Send me everything about Velkari physiology, she said. Neural structure, respiratory system, metabolic pathways. All of it. Why? Dong-Hyun asked, though he suspected he knew. We're developing countermeasures, Yoonji said carefully. In case diplomacy fails, countermeasures. That was the polite word for what she was creating. Bioweapons. Viruses designed to target specific alien species. Toxins that would kill Velkari but leave humans untouched. Neural agents that could shut down Torvan brain function. Weapons of last resort. Weapons they hoped never to use. But weapons they would have ready, just in case. Data sent, Dong-Hyun said. I've also planted monitoring programs in their communication systems. We'll know when they figure out what's happening. When, not if. Yoonji asked. When, Dong-Hyun confirmed. We've claimed too much territory. Someone will notice eventually. That someone turned out to be a junior analyst named Kelvor, a member of the Astron Collective. He was reviewing shipping records when he noticed something strange. Resource shipments from the Outer Rim had decreased by 15% over the past year. Not enough to cause alarm, but enough to be unusual. He dug deeper. Merchant ships reported difficulties in certain sectors. Unexplained equipment failures. Navigation errors that seemed random but showed a pattern when analyzed. Kelvor brought his findings to his supervisor, who dismissed them. The Outer Rim is vast. Minor fluctuations are normal. But Kelvor kept investigating. He cross-referenced missing patrol ships, unexplained energy signatures, reports of strange vessels. And slowly a picture emerged. Someone was out there. Someone organized. Someone powerful. someone who didn't want to be found. Kelvor sent his report directly to Coalition High Command. It sat in a queue for 3 weeks before anyone read it. By the time they did, humanity had claimed 48 systems. Meanwhile, Hanakwan moved through a Coalition diplomatic station wearing the form of a low-level clerk. Her mission was intelligence gathering, but she found herself learning things that surprised her. The Coalition had not been idle in the 2 centuries since humanity's exile. They had enslaved 6 other species. Races that had resisted Coalition expansion or refused to accept Coalition law had been conquered and put to work. Their planets stripped of resources, their people used as labor. Hana recorded everything. The slave markets on Torvan worlds, the work camps on Velkari colonies, the species driven to the edge of extinction for daring to resist. They called us violent, she transmitted back to Earth. But look what they've become without anyone to challenge them. The irony was not lost on humanity's leaders. The Coalition had exiled humans for being too dangerous, then became something worse. This changes the moral calculation, one counselor said when reviewing Hana's reports. Does it? Another replied. We're still planning conquest. Liberation, the first corrected. We're planning liberation. Let's not lie to ourselves, Admiral Jisoo said from her ship. She had returned to Earth for this meeting. We're not doing this to free slaves. We're doing this because the galaxy rejected us. The fact that the Coalition turned into hypocrites just makes it easier to justify. The room fell silent. No one wanted to admit she was right, but no one could deny it either. Continue the expansion, the council leader finally said, but make note of the enslaved species. When we make our presence known, that information could be useful. Captain Seojun Kang commanded a destroyer squadron on the edge of human-controlled space. His ships were small but fast, equipped with weapons that could punch through shields twice their size. They were scouts, raiders, and when necessary, enforcers. Captain, his sensor officer reported. Coalition fleet detected. Heavy cruiser and 4 escorts. They're heading toward Outpost 29. Seojun studied the tactical display. The Coalition was sending a real force this time. Not a patrol ship, but actual warships. They had finally decided to investigate the Outer Rim properly. Can we evacuate the outpost in time? No, sir. The fleet will arrive in 3 hours. We need 8 to evacuate personnel and equipment. Seojun made his decision. Then we don't evacuate. We fight. His officers looked shocked. Sir, our orders are to avoid engagement. We're not supposed to reveal our full capabilities. Our orders are also to protect human lives, Seojun said. There are 300 people on that outpost. I'm not leaving them. He opened a channel to his squadron. All ships intercept course. Battle stations. We're going to send the Coalition a message. The 5 human destroyers moved to intercept the Coalition fleet. From the cruiser's perspective, 5 small ships were approaching. The cruiser's captain was amused. Unknown vessels, he transmitted. You are ordered to stand down and identify yourselves. Seojun's response was simple. This is Captain Seojun Kang of the Terran Defense Force. You are in human space. Turn back or be destroyed. The Coalition captain laughed. The idea of primitive humans challenging a Coalition cruiser was absurd. He ordered his ships to open fire. It was the last order he ever gave. The human destroyers moved with impossible speed. Their weapons hit with devastating accuracy. Shields that should have held for minutes collapsed in seconds. Hull armor designed to withstand massive punishment melted like wax. The battle lasted 7 minutes. When it was over, the Coalition cruiser was a burning wreck. 3 of its escorts were destroyed. The 4th was disabled, its crew desperately transmitting distress signals. Seojun let that one go. He wanted survivors. He wanted witnesses. This is Captain Seojun Kang, he transmitted on all Coalition frequencies. Tell your leaders. Tell your people. Humanity has returned, and we are not asking for permission. He cut the transmission. Around him, his bridge crew was silent. The emergency session of the Galactic Coalition lasted 3 days. Representatives from 200 species gathered to debate what to do about humanity's return. Some argued for diplomacy. Others called for immediate military action. A few suggested they should simply acknowledge their mistake and welcome humans back. Those few were outvoted quickly. They attacked our ships without provocation, a Velkari military commander said. They have illegally occupied Coalition space. They must be expelled by force. Expelled to where? An Astran diplomat asked. They've already broken through the barrier. They've established themselves in 48 systems. How exactly do you propose we expel them? We have 200 species in the coalition, the Velkari replied. They have one. We have thousands of warships. We outnumber them 20 to 1. We crush them before they grow stronger. The vote was taken. The coalition chose war. Grand Admiral Kyung-ho Shin received the news aboard his flagship, the Vindication. The ship was a monster, 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that humanity had spent 2 centuries developing. It hung in orbit above Mars, surrounded by a fleet of 5,000 warships. They voted for war, his communications officer reported. Kyung-ho nodded slowly. He was old even by enhanced human standards, nearly 200 years old, and he had spent most of that time preparing for this moment. Send to all fleet commanders, he said. Execute Operation Reckoning. All targets are authorized. Rules of engagement unlimited. Across human-controlled space, fleets began to move. They had been positioned carefully, strategically over months of silent expansion. Now they converged on coalition territory like a closing fist. The first target was Velkar Prime, homeworld of the species that had led the vote to exile humanity. The Velkari had always been proud of their defenses. Their homeworld was protected by orbital weapons platforms, shield generators, and a fleet of 300 warships. They believed themselves invincible. They learned otherwise in a single afternoon. The human fleet arrived without warning. One moment, Velkari sensors showed empty space. The next, 200 human warships appeared from stealth, dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. This is Admiral Jisoo Han of the Terran Empire, she transmitted. Velkar Prime is under siege. Surrender your orbital defenses and your fleet, or we will destroy them. You have 1 hour to decide. The Velkari Hive Mother, leader of their species, watched the transmission with her compound eyes. She felt the confusion and fear rippling through the mental link that connected all Velkari. This was impossible. Humans could not have built such a fleet. Humans were primitives barely capable of basic spaceflight. Destroy them, she ordered. The Velkari fleet launched. The orbital weapons opened fire. Energy beams capable of melting mountains lanced toward the human ships. The human ships barely seemed to notice. Their shields absorbed the weapons fire with ease. Their counterstrike was devastating. Missiles that could bend space itself tore through Velkari hulls. Particle beams that operated on principles the Coalition had never mastered cut ships in half. Weapons that shouldn't exist, built on theory the Coalition had dismissed as impossible, proved very real. In 20 minutes, half the Velkari fleet was destroyed. The rest retreated, broken and burning. 30 minutes remaining, Admiral Jisoo transmitted calmly. Choose wisely. The Hive Mother felt her species' fear through their mental network. She had never experienced anything like it. The Velkari were being dominated, crushed by a species they had thought inferior. We surrender, she finally said. Too late, Jisoo replied. The human fleet began their bombardment. Not of population centers, humanity had not become genocidal, but of infrastructure. Orbital stations were destroyed. Shield generators were reduced to slag. Communication satellites fell from the sky. The Velkari fleet limped back to port, only to find their shipyards in flames. But Jisoo did something worse than destroy. She blockaded. 100 human ships positioned themselves around Velkar Prime, cutting off all incoming and outgoing traffic. The Velkari homeworld had 17 billion inhabitants. They imported most of their food from colony worlds. Without those supplies, starvation would begin in weeks. This is the price of your vote, Jisoo transmitted to the planet. You chose to exile humanity. Now experience exile yourselves. When you are ready to discuss terms, contact me. Until then, nothing enters or leaves your system. She left a squadron to maintain the blockade and took the rest of her fleet to the next target. The Astran Collective was humanity's second target. The crystalline beings had always prided themselves on their advanced communication network. Every member of their species was connected through quantum-entangled crystals, allowing instant communication across their entire civilization. Agent Minji Lim had been preparing for this moment for 5 years. She had infiltrated Astran space using technology that let her mimic their crystalline structure. She had planted devices and communication hubs across a dozen worlds. Devices that now activated. The quantum weapons detonated simultaneously. They didn't explode in any traditional sense. Instead, they created cascading failures in the quantum entanglement network. Crystal structures shattered. Communication nodes went dark. The mental network that the Astron used to coordinate their entire civilization simply stopped. One moment, the Astron Collective was a unified species of 8 billion minds. The next, they were 8 billion isolated individuals, unable to communicate, unable to coordinate, unable to function as a society. Their government collapsed within hours. Their economy within days. Ships drifted in space, their crews unable to receive orders. Colonies went silent, cut off from the central authority. Minji watched from a safe distance as civilization fell apart. Target neutralized, she reported. The Astron Collective is no longer a threat. Did you have to destroy their entire communication network? Her supervisor asked. You wanted them taken out of the war, Minji said. This was the most efficient method. Besides, the network can be rebuilt. Eventually. After they learn to humble themselves. The Torvan Empire received different treatment. Their worlds were oceans, their cities built beneath the waves. Traditional orbital bombardment would be ineffective. Nuclear weapons would cause environmental catastrophe. The Torvan believed themselves safe from attack. Captain Seojin Kang proved them wrong. His squadron arrived in the Torvan system with specialized weapons. Not bombs or beams, but something more creative. Heat generators. The devices dropped from orbit into the Torvan oceans. They sank to the bottom and activated. Each one began converting water to steam using controlled fusion reactions. The ocean temperature began to rise. 1 degree, 2 degrees, 5 degrees. This is Captain Seojin Kang, he transmitted to the Torvan government. We can keep raising the temperature, or you can surrender your military fleet. Choose. The Torvan chose to fight. Their submarines and underwater fortresses opened fire with weapons designed for ocean combat. It made no difference. The human ships were in orbit, beyond the reach of underwater weapons. The heat generators continued their work. 10 degrees. 15 degrees. The Torvan oceans began to boil. Surrender now, Sojin repeated, or your oceans become steam. The Torvan surrendered across the galaxy. Similar battles unfolded. Some coalition species resisted and were crushed. Others surrendered immediately. A few tried to negotiate, offering trade or technology in exchange for peace. Humanity accepted none of it. We tried negotiation once, Admiral Kyung-ho Shin told the coalition ambassadors who finally came to discuss terms. 200 years ago, you responded by exiling us. Now we negotiate from a position of strength. The ambassadors were terrified. The human fleet had destroyed or disabled hundreds of coalition warships. They had blockaded major worlds. They had demonstrated technological superiority in every engagement. And according to intelligence reports, this was only a fraction of humanity's military power. What do you want? The lead ambassador asked. She was Torvan, her voice trembling. Kyung-ho looked at her with cold eyes. First, complete dissolution of the Galactic Coalition. Second, reparations to humanity for 2 centuries of exile. Third, installation of human oversight councils on every former coalition world. Fourth, unrestricted human access to all coalition technology and resources. That's unconditional surrender, the ambassador said. Yes, Kyung-ho agreed. Do you have a counteroffer? The ambassador looked at her colleagues. They had expected demands, but not this. Not total subjugation. We need time to discuss. You have 1 day, Kyung-ho interrupted. After that, we resume military operations. And this time we will not be so gentle. The ambassadors left. The coalition held emergency sessions. Some species wanted to continue fighting. Most knew it was hopeless. They had lost the war in its first month. The coalition's assembled armada made one last attempt. 20,000 warships gathered at Nexus Gate, a strategic location between coalition and human space. It was the largest fleet in galactic history. Admiral Kyung-ho brought 5,000 ships to meet them. They outnumber us 4-1, his tactical officer observed. They outgun us 0-1, Kyung-ho replied. Numbers are not everything. The Battle of Nexus Gate lasted 4 hours. Human ships moved through the coalition fleet like wolves through sheep. Their weapons were more powerful. Their shields were stronger. The Terran Concordat was established 6 months after the coalition's surrender. It was not an alliance of equals. It was an empire, and humanity made no attempt to pretend otherwise. Chancellor Sun-Ho Choi stood in what had once been the Coalition Council chambers, now renamed the Hall of Accord. Representatives from 300 species filled the seats, but they were not here to vote. They were here to receive instructions. The Terran Concordat is not the Galactic Coalition, Sunho said, his voice calm but firm. We do not believe in consensus. We do not waste years debating simple decisions. We act and you follow. That is the new order. Some representatives shifted uncomfortably. Others accepted it with resignation. A few, mostly species that had been enslaved by the coalition, looked almost grateful. However, Sunho continued, we are not tyrants. We are administrators. Follow Concordat law. Contribute to common defense and you will have autonomy in your internal affairs. Resist and you will learn why the coalition fell in 30 days. It was a simple bargain. Obey and prosper or resist and suffer. Most chose to obey. Marshal Yaren Jung commanded the occupation forces, 300 fleets spread across former coalition space. Her job was to maintain order, and she approached it with ruthless efficiency. When the Velkari colony on Redstone attempted rebellion, refusing to pay the reparations demanded by Earth, Yaren's response was immediate. She took a single destroyer to orbit above the colony. This is Marshal Yaren Jung, she transmitted. You have 24 hours to resume reparation payments. If you refuse, I will destroy every power generator on your planet. You will spend the next winter in the dark. The colony leaders thought she was bluffing. Surely humans would not punish an entire population for the actions of their government. They were wrong. 24 hours later, precision strikes destroyed every major power plant on Redstone. The colony plunged into darkness. Temperatures dropped. People suffered. After 3 days, the rebellion ended. Yaren restored the power plants and left. The message was clear. Resistance had consequences. Swift, certain inevitable consequences. But Yaren was not mindlessly cruel. When a Torvan world experienced a natural disaster, a massive undersea volcanic eruption that threatened millions of lives, Yaren diverted relief fleets immediately. Human ships rescued Torvan citizens, provided medical care, and rebuilt infrastructure. We are harsh but fair, she told her officers. We punish rebellion, but we also protect those under our authority. That is what separates us from the coalition. Some of her officers disagreed. They had grown up on stories of the exile, taught to hate the aliens who had cast out humanity. To them, every non-human was an enemy. Why should we help them? One officer asked after the Torvan rescue. They voted to exile us. That was 2 centuries ago, Yaren said. Most of these people were not even alive then. And more importantly, they are ours now. We have a responsibility to what we rule. It was a philosophy that caused tension within human leadership. Some, like Yaren, believed in ruling justly. Others believed the aliens deserved punishment for the sins of their ancestors. Professor Woojin Lee tried to bridge this divide through education. He established the Historical Commission, tasked with documenting the exile and its consequences. But Woojin did something unexpected. He insisted on teaching the full story. Yes, the coalition exiled us, he told students at the new Terran Academy. Yes, they feared us. But ask yourselves, were they entirely wrong? The question shocked his students. They had been raised to believe humanity was the victim, pure and simple. Before the exile, Woojin continued, humanity was involved in 17 armed conflicts in 30 years. We were aggressive, quick to violence, unwilling to compromise. The coalition's fear was not baseless, but they imprisoned us, a student protested. They tried to destroy us. They tried to contain us, Woojin corrected. And yes, that was wrong. But understanding their perspective does not excuse their actions. It helps us avoid becoming what they feared. If we rule through fear and force alone, we prove them right. His lectures were controversial. Some called him a traitor, others called him a realist. But his students began to think more deeply about what humanity had become. One of those students was a young officer named Ji-Young Seo. She had grown up believing in humanity's righteousness, in the justice of their victory. Woojin's lectures troubled her. She began to investigate independently. She reviewed footage from the Battle of Nexus Gate, where humanity had destroyed 10,000 coalition ships. She read reports from Velkar Prime, where the blockade had caused widespread starvation before the planet surrendered. She studied the bioweapons that Dr. Yoonji Song had developed, weapons that could kill entire species. Ji-Young realized that humanity had become something terrifying. Not evil, perhaps, but dangerous in ways the old coalition had never imagined. She was not alone in her concerns. Others shared her doubts. Officers who questioned orders, scientists who worried about the weapons they created, diplomats who saw the fear in alien eyes. They began to meet in secret. They called themselves the Conscience Fleet, though they were not a fleet at all. Just a group of humans who believed their species had gone too far. "We won the war," Ji-young said at one meeting. "But at what cost? We've become conquerors. We've built an empire on fear." "What would you have us do?" another officer asked. "Release our grip and watch the galaxy attack us again?" "No," Ji-young said. "But we could rule with mercy. We could help the species we conquered instead of just dominating them. We could be what the coalition should have been." It was a radical idea. Dangerous even. If the government learned about the Conscience Fleet, its members could be charged with sedition. But Ji-young believed it was necessary. Humanity needed a conscience. Without one, they would become the monsters the coalition had feared. Her concerns reached unexpected ears. Chancellor Sun Ho-choi himself requested a meeting. Ji-young went expecting arrest. Instead, Sun-ho listened. "You think we've become tyrants," he said after she explained her position. "I think we're becoming tyrants," Ji-young corrected. "But we don't have to be." Sun-ho was silent for a long moment. "Do you know why I accepted this position?" he finally asked. "Not because I wanted power, because someone needs to ensure we don't lose ourselves in victory." He opened a file on his desk. "These are proposals for concordate reform. More autonomy for member species. Investment in alien worlds, not just extraction of resources. Integration instead of domination." He looked at Ji-young. "I want you to help me implement them." Ji-young was stunned. "Why me?" "Because you see what many humans refuse to see. That victory is not the end. It's the beginning. And what we do next will define us for centuries." The reforms began slowly. Human oversight councils were instructed to work with local governments, not simply dictate to them. Reparation payments were reduced for species that cooperated. Investment flowed into rebuilding worlds damaged during the war. Not everyone approved. Marshal Yeren Young supported the reforms, believing they would create stability. Admiral Kyung-ho Shin opposed them, arguing that mercy was weakness. "We rule through strength," he said at a council meeting. "The moment we show weakness, they will rebel." "We rule through strength," Sun-ho agreed. "But strength is not just military power. It's also the strength to be just. The coalition ruled through fear and fell. We can do better." The debate continued for months. Meanwhile, on worlds across the Concordate, aliens began to see changes. Human soldiers who had been occupiers began to act as peacekeepers. Resources that had been extracted began to be invested. Schools were built. Hospitals were established. Infrastructure was repaired. Slowly, grudgingly, some species began to accept Terran rule. Not out of love, but out of recognition that it was better than what had come before. The Velkari hive mother, who had surrendered her fleet and watched her homeworld starve, was brought to Earth. She expected execution or permanent imprisonment. Instead, she was given a seat in the Hall of Accord. "You voted to exile humanity," Chancellor Sun-ho told her. "Now you will watch us rebuild the galaxy. You will see what we do with our victory, and perhaps you will learn that fear was your true enemy, not humanity." The hive mother had no response. She took her seat and watched. Over the next 7 years, the Terran Concordate expanded to 500 systems. New species joined, some willingly, others under pressure. The human population grew to 70 billion, spread across dozens of colony worlds. But the Concordate was not stable. Rebellions erupted on outer worlds. Terrorist groups formed among species that refused to accept human rule. And within humanity itself, the debate continued about what kind of empire they were building. Bora An was the last living member of the Coalition Council that had voted for humanity's exile. She was ancient now, kept alive by medical technology that humans had shared with her. She lived on Earth, in a small apartment overlooking the rebuilt United Nations complex. Ji-young visited her sometimes. The old alien had become a symbol, a reminder of the past. "Do you regret your vote?" Ji-young asked during one visit. Bora's crystalline form shimmered with what might have been sadness. "Every day, we feared what you might become. Our fear made you into exactly what we feared. Are we what you feared?" Ji-young asked. Bora considered this. "You are worse. And better. You are more violent than we imagined."